Chapter 2, Moisture Content. In Washington State, mostly what I burn is Douglas fir. There are some other species mixed in, but major portion of the wood we burn is Douglas fir. If we cut and chop the wood up in May and June, it has from June to September to dry. We have long summer days, and we can go from green to moisture content of 12 to 15% if properly dried. I've measured my piles of wood and gotten very close to 12%, and it burns quite well once it gets down to 12% using a moisture meter. If you put a wood in your fire and it's got a raging fire in there and the wood is not contributing to the fire, it's likely too wet. It has to drive off the moisture before the volatiles in the wood will start vaporizing off and contributing to the fire. So if you see wood going in the fire and it's just not burning for the first 10 minutes, there's a good chance that moisture content is too high in that piece of wood. Now, it will eventually burn, but you've got to wait until all the water is driven off out of the wood before the wood will contribute to the fire. The best way to read wood moisture content, and you're going to want to burn wood that's under 20% moisture content, is with a pin style moisture probe. Here's an example of one on Amazon that I like. It's got a 9-volt battery. It's easy to find a battery for it. $15 on Amazon. This would be a good choice. Here's another example of a pin style moisture probe for wood. I bought one of these, $10 from Harbor Freight, and it was a great unit. I wish I could locate it right now, take a picture of it, but I would recommend this as a good moisture meter for wood. I spent many years in fire testing labs, and one of the things we had to do was measure the moisture content of the wood prior to a fire test. This is the formula for calculating percent moisture in wood, and it is developed by the Forest Products Lab in Madison, Wisconsin. I have actually visited that lab. To do this, you put it in an oven at 100 degrees C or 212 F for 48 hours, weighing it, the sample before you put it in the oven and weighing it after. And the formula is wet weight minus dry weight divided by dry weight times 100. The thing that people don't understand is green wood can have a moisture content above 100%. The way to think of that is a sponge. You put a sponge on a scale, a dry sponge, and then you fill it with water and put it on the scale. You will get more than 100% moisture content. This is the formula for laboratory style moisture content method, but the pin style is much more economical and doable. With this diagram, I want to talk about the flow of firewood into the stove. On the left, we have good seasoned dry firewood. In the blue box, we have wood that's not quite dry yet. In the middle, we've got a drying box. I'm not going to talk a great deal about that, but I want to represent it here. I'll have another chapter on building a drying box. Then in the house, we've got our inside storage, and then we have our wood stove painted in yellow with a black stack. If you're able to get your wood in the sun in June, in September or October, when you start to burn, you'll likely be around 15%. Then what you want to do is bring a day's load of wood or 20 pounds of wood or so inside and store it inside where it can come up to room temperature prior to putting in the wood stove. The wood has to come up to the 400 degree temperature in the wood stove to actually start vaporizing. If you put a cold outside piece of wood in, it's going to take more time for it to come up to that temperature. So if you can preheat the wood a little bit inside the house, it dries it out a little bit, and it makes it burn faster or ignite quicker when you get it inside the stove. In our area, when we moved into a house, we didn't have a lot of firewood when we put the wood stove in. So I ended up buying firewood on Craigslist, and the wood, it came quite wet. I don't know what the moisture content was. I just know that it wouldn't burn in the wood stove. So I'm going to say it was around 25%, and we put it in a drying box prior to putting it in the wood stove or in the house, and then into the wood stove. The 25% wood is not green. It's seasoned wood that has been outside in the rain and has a high moisture content, and it just won't burn that well. But if you put it in a drying box, and the drying box is a dehumidification chamber, it's got a heater in it, it will remove a lot of the surface moisture off the wood. It would then burn quite well in the wood stove. So these are the wood stove strategies that I have to share with you today.